ただいまより講演会を再開いたします。ベアフットカレッジのプロフィールと業績をご紹介する映像をご覧ください。
ベアフットカレッジは1972年に貧しい農村の自立を支援するためにインド・ラジャスタン州ティロニア村に設立されました。創設者バンカー・ロイ氏は1960年代後半、インドの大飢饉の餓死者を目の当たりにし、村人の役に立ちたいと決意。深刻な水不足に直面した多くの村を訪ね、5年間にわたって井戸を掘り続けました。マハトマ・ガンジーのインド心臓部の村の発展が最も大切だという教えをもとに、最重要課題である水の確保にポンプ職人を養成、数千機のポンプを設置しました。1986年、石工、鍛冶職人、農民たちが6年がかりで新キャンパスを完成。組織をベアフットカレッジと改称。村のニーズに取り組むベアフットプロフェッショナルを養成し、インド17州で約1500の雨水貯蔵タンクや灌漑用ダムを建設。1989年以降、太陽光発電機を設置、機器の組み立て、修理、管理を担うソーラーエンジニアを養成し、インド16州630の寒村に明かりを灯しました。昼間働いている子どもたちが今では117ものナイトスクールで勉強ができるようになりました。2005年からはインド政府の支援のもと、海外からも研修生を受け入れ、アフリカ、アジア、南アメリカ、ロシアなどの30カ国200名が身振り手振りを駆使して学び、母国の貧しい村に電気を灯しました。
ただいまより講演会を再開いたします。ベアフットカレッジの創設者バンカー・ロイ様に、ご登壇いただきます。本日の演題は、本当のプロフェッショナリズムとはベアフットアプローチでございます。それではベアフットカレッジロイ様、お願いいたします。Mr. Roy, please proceed.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me take you in the next 40 minutes to a completely different world. A world full of poverty and hope, a world full of challenges and solutions, a world where very poor people have nothing, yet they have proved extraordinary solutions on the ground, which can be replicated anywhere. I went to a very expensive school and education in India, and I was all set to be a diplomat or a doctor or a scientist. But then in 1965, I went to a village for the first time and saw famine and death and hunger. And that changed my life because when I came back to my house, to the home, I informed my family that I want to live and work in a village which did not go down at all very well, because they had all my life ahead of me, and all of a sudden I was spoiling the plan, doing everything that you were not supposed to do, not listening to your family, not listening to your mother, and they got very upset. I could see from Dr. Lepchenko's presentation that she had actually quoted the FAO. When I decided to live and work in a village, my grandfather was the Director General of FAO, and he also couldn't understand what I was going to do in a village. I said I want to be an unskilled laborer digging wells in a village. She did not speak to me for many years because she felt that I had let my family down. I was not doing exactly what the family was supposed, what the family had directed me to do. And she felt that I was wasting my time, no money, no job, no prospect, no security. What was I going to do in a village? But for 5 years, I dug wells, went into a well 100 feet below the ground by rope. I only did my master's in English, so I knew nothing about compressors and rock drills and explosives and tractors, but I picked it up. And my teacher was someone who is still illiterate today. And that was when I was exposed to the most extraordinary knowledge and skills that very poor people have. Knowledge, skills, and wisdom that you will find anywhere in the world. And I thought this knowledge and skill and wisdom should be brought out into mainstream and shown how relevant it is even today. So I thought I'd start a Barefoot college only for the poor. What the poor thought was important would be reflected in the college. The one thing the poor told me, anyway, when I went to the village, the elders came to me and said, "Are you running from the police?" I said, "No, I'm not running from the police." "You didn't get a government job?" I said, "No, I wasn't looking for a government job." "You failed in your exam?" I said, "No, I didn't fail in my exam." "Why are you here in this village? Is there something wrong with you?" I said, "No, I'm voluntarily coming and living and working in a village, and I want to do something because I've got the best education, I want to give something back." Then they said, "If you want to start a college for the poor, there is one thing you must never do." I said, "Oh, what is that?" They said, "Never let anyone with a degree and qualification into your college." So it's the only college in India that if you should have a master's or a MSc, you're disqualified to come. You have to be someone who's from a village, very ordinary, who has only a dignity of labor, who can work with his hands. So when I said that, when we started the college, they said, "Tell me, what is the college all about?" We are trying to redefine professionalism. Who is a professional today? Someone who has a combination of competence, confidence, and belief is a professional. To me, a traditional midwife in a village is a professional. A water diviner is a professional. A traditional bone setter who sets bones, who haven't been to school and college, is a professional. And these people you will find everywhere. Today, when they said, "Show us what you mean," we started in the village of Stelonia, which is 500 miles southwest of Delhi. It's a very small village of 2,000 people. Why barefoot? Because it's a place, because it is symbolic of people who live on less than $1 a day. Many millions of people walk barefoot. It's a place where we want to give recognition and respect to traditional knowledge. That's why we call it barefoot. Someone who hasn't been through formal education, that's why we call it barefoot. It's a place where people can come and try all ideas which are innovative, different, out of the box, and that's a place where we want people to try these ideas. Why college? Because it's a place for learning and unlearning. It's a place to make your mistakes. It's a place where the teacher is the learner and the learner is the teacher. There is no distinction because you can learn, you're always constantly learning. And it's the place where we don't give anyone a paper certificate, because the certification of your knowledge that you have should be given by the community you serve, not by the college or university you go to. When we said that, they should show what you're talking about. So we built the Barefoot College today at $1.50 a square foot. 12 barefoot architects built the college. They still can't read and write today. No architect was involved, no engineer was involved. Only traditional knowledge and skills and local materials were involved. When we got to the roof, all the women said, now all the men clear out, because this technology we don't want to share with the men. So they waterproofed the roofs, using jaggery and urine and some other materials we don't want to know about, but it is waterproofed. Still today, it does not leak. It took us 3 years to make this, to make the college. When we talked about how we should control water, the grandfathers of the village said, why don't you collect rainwater? So all the colleges, all the roofs of the colleges are connected underground. And you see that stage, under that stage is a 400,000 liter tank. Not one drop is wasted. This is how you demystify science and technology. All the water collects underground, and on that stage we have people, 5,000 people who can sit on the tank and watch performances and shows. It is the only college in the 21st century, even though it's been built by people who can't read and write, because we have optical fiber cable, video conferencing, and that is a telephone exchange running off solar. It's the only college which has a courier service, so if you should happen to buy some Thilonia handicrafts, in 7 days from that little post office there, it will reach you anywhere in the world. It's a college that believes in the lifestyle and the work style of Mahatma Gandhi. We sit on the floor, we eat on the floor, we work on the floor. Everything is very simple. No one can get more than $200 a month as salary, because you come for the challenge, you don't come for the money. It's a place where there's no contract signed. You come on trust and faith. You can stay with me for 20 years and go tomorrow. No one stops you just because a piece of paper shouldn't come in the way. It's the only college which is fully solar energized. And the person who solar energized my college is a Hindu priest, still looks after his temple, but he knows more about solar energy than anyone I know anywhere in the world. 50 kilowatts of panels are on the roofs. Everything works off the sun. For the next 25 years, I have no problem so long as the sun shines. My telephone exchange, my photocopying machine, 700 lights, 700 fans, everything works off the sun. If you should happen to come to the Barefoot College, you will get solar food, solar cooked food. That is a very sophisticated Cefla cooker. 60 meals a day, twice a day, you get from solar cooking. But the beauty is that this solar cooker is made by illiterate women. They can't read and write, but they know how to make that very sophisticated clock which turns the solar cooker with the sun. They're almost half German because they're so precise. Indian women are not precise at all. When we thought of doing some housing, we went to a very eminent architect, Buckminster Fuller in America, and this is the design called the geodesic dome. It's a very sophisticated design which you need 5 years of architect college to do it. So when someone says that to me, I went and took that to the local blacksmith and said, "Can you copy it?" He said, "Of course I can copy it. There's no problem in this." So 100 solar, these geodesic domes have been designed by blacksmiths. This is a way of generating employment in the villages. And some of these geodesic domes are internet cafes, milk booths, also a pathology laboratory. This is a pathology laboratory where we do samples of blood and urine tests, which only for the poor. What would cost you 1,000 rupees in Delhi will cost you only 10 rupees to carry out these samples. And these pathologists are physically challenged. They are all barefoot pathologists. They know how to carry out these tests on the ground. All these geodesic domes have been used for housing in Rajasthan, where you shouldn't be using wood. We also have a woman dentist, illiterate grandmother, who looks after 7,000 teeth of 7,000 children who go to our night schools. You know, Mark Twain said, "Never let school interfere with your education." School is where you learn how to read and write. Education is what you learn from your family, from your community, from your environment. And we feel that just because someone can't read and write, this is our belief, just because someone can't read and write, you shouldn't penalize him or her, because she or he has so much to give back to society. And we shouldn't label or penalize or marginalize anybody just because they can't read and write. So all these women who are traditionally working, looking after the house and children, are now being given other occupations in the Barefoot College. This is a woman who's weaving. This is a man's job in India. And now we're trying to show that a woman can do the same job as a man. Now this woman would never be sitting in that doing weaving on that machine, because, and it's looked with great suspicion, because why is a woman doing a man's job? We are trying to change people's perceptions and mindsets about how women, they're usually on handicrafts, but now we are making them repair hand pumps, which is something very unusual. Never have a woman looking after a hand pump. This is considered too revolutionary. We have women who are solar engineers. Unbelievable in India, because they think that's a man's work. Why is a woman becoming an engineer? We have a woman becoming a mason who makes rainwater harvesting tanks. And she doesn't need to know how to read and write, because she has this flair, she has this basic knowledge which is inside her, which she wants to share. We have women looking after computers. Now that woman, this woman here, is illiterate, but she's still working on computers and training other women how to use computers and make spreadsheets. 60% of children don't go to school in the morning because they look after cattle and sheep and goats in the morning. But they go to school at night. They only have time at night to go to the school. So we, since 1975, we have run schools for these shepherd boys and girls at night. Most of these schools now are solar lit with solar lanterns. And every 3 years, these 7,000 children who go to these 150 night schools have an election. Between 6 and 14, these girls elect a prime minister. The prime minister today is 12 years old. She looks after 20 goats in the morning. She's elected through a ballot box, and she's prime minister in the evening. And she has a cabinet. Minister for Energy, Minister for Education, Minister for Women, and they all monitor and supervise their own schools, the 150 schools. The Prime Minister, when she was 12 years old, got the World's Children's Prize from the Queen of Sweden. And the Queen of Sweden was so dazzled by this young girl who had never left her village in her life, and she had come out first time to Sweden, and she asked me to ask this young girl, where did she get her confidence from? How is she so confident? She's 12 years old, never been out of her village. So the Prime Minister, as the Prime Minister, turned to the Queen straight in the eye and said, please tell her I'm the Prime Minister. We communicate using puppetry. Where illiteracy is so high and where there's no television, where there's no printed media, we use puppetry. This puppet is 300 years old. His name is Joachim Chacha. He's my psychoanalyst, he's my doctor, he's my lawyer, he's my donor, he's my problem solver, and all the disputes I have in the village is solved by this puppet. We have over 100,000 people seeing these puppets every year. We talk to them about why you should have safe drinking water, what are the laws of the country, how you should not beat your wife, why you should be given minimum wages. All these are issues that the puppets share with the community at large. Biggest problem in India is water, especially in Rajasthan. I've been there for 40 years now, and sometimes it does not rain for 5 years. So it's very important to collect water when it falls, if it falls, should it fall. So one way of doing that is to collect the water where some of these dams have broken. So I'm going to share with you how this dam, just by constructing this dam and collecting the rainwater, 16 million liters of rainwater has gone into the ground. It has only cost us about 25,000 pounds. And as a result of this, you find you have given jobs to about 3,000 people. It has benefited just the water percolating into the ground. It has revitalized wells and hand pumps. Very simple technology which has been hundreds of years old. You don't need to go to a school and college to do this. This is just common sense. Just by doing that, you have 106 hand pumps which have been energized. And just by making the dam, over 10 kilometers, some of these wells have been recharged. So this is the way we think you should recharge rainwater. Get rainwater into the ground and recharge some of the wells and hand pumps which are dry. There are also places where water is very brackish. So we've got this demystified technology of solar electrified reverse osmosis plants. These plants convert brackish water of 9,000 ppm to about 600 ppm. We take buildings which are not being used by the village, revitalize them, make them into solar-operated plants. Those are the batteries which are charged, and this is the reverse osmosis plant. And we've got about 5 of them in brackish water villages, when about 5,000 liters per day we give. One of our great champions is Prince Charles. He came of Telonia, and he's been a patron of this rainwater movement in Rajasthan. One of the first things we did when we solar electrified the Barefoot College, we extended that technology by demystifying the technology and decentralizing it and giving it to villages all over. We have done about 600 villages all over India using this method. Over 13,000 houses have been electrified in over 600 villages. We went to Ladakh, up in -40, up in the mountains in Kashmir, and we asked one woman, what is the benefit you have received from solar lighting? And she turned to us very simply and said, this is the first time I can see my husband's face in winter. Because for 6 months, they are with only candles. So you can imagine the enormous difference this has had on the lives of people. Solar electrified villages on the India-Pakistan border. The solar light is used for generating income. They actually make these handicrafts at home using solar lanterns, and over $100,000 of sale has taken place. So after we solar electrified these villages in 13 states of India, what we did was to go abroad. We went to Afghanistan. We took a woman from Afghanistan, 3 women from Afghanistan. They wouldn't come alone because they said it is against their tradition. So we had to take the husbands along as well. We took the husbands along with the women to India to train them. This is the woman who's my best woman solar engineer. She's 55 years old. She's a grandmother. She's illiterate, but she has solar electrified 200 houses for me in 2005. It is still working today. They have set up an electronic workshop in the village. They have solar electrified each house in the village. And we calculated that the cost of solar electrifying 5 villages, bringing them to India, flying them into India, training them for 6 months, buying 150 panels, installing them, transporting them, and putting them in solar electrifying the first 5 villages ever in Afghanistan by women was the cost of one UN consultant sitting for 1 year in Kabul. That didn't go down well at all with the UNDP. And they said, you can't show that film. I said, am I saying anything wrong? You have 700 of you sitting there, and not one village have been solar electrified. So I'm not very popular in Afghanistan. Those 3 women have trained 27 more women in Afghanistan and solar electrified over 100 villages. What did the Barefoot College do? They only trained 3 women. We went to Africa, and there we learned an important lesson. We felt that men in Africa were untrainable because men are restless, men are ambitious, men are compulsively mobile, and they all want a certificate. And the moment you give a man a certificate in Africa, he leaves his village within days looking for a job in a city. So what was the solution we came up with? The solution we came up with was training grandmothers. In Africa, you're a grandmother at 35. So we went to villages, and in most of these villages in Africa, they use that small little kerosene lamp that you see he's got in his hand. And that lamp you see everywhere in Africa. Wherever you go, you'll see that little lamp with that little light, and they spend between $5 to $10 a month on only this light. They call it by different names. They have innovative ways of making light. That thing is actually a CD. That's LED, light, CD, and 4 batteries. All innovative, all improvised, fantastic. I saw this in Niger. They call it by different names, all different names. In Djibouti, in Chad, they're all called in their own language. What is the Barefoot approach in Africa? We go to the whole village and call them out. The whole village must get together. They must have a village committee. And the village committee must decide how much they're willing to pay if solar light comes to your village. And they agree to pay what they already pay for kerosene, candles, torch batteries, and diesel. Then they have to form a fund, and everyone has to pay into that fund. Then they have to select an illiterate rural grandmother in the whole village. And that grandmother has to be endorsed by the whole community. And for the first time in her history, she has to go for 6 months to India. She has to come to India. The community has to donate a building or a room where we can set up a workshop. And that workshop is used when the grandmother comes back from training to do all the major and minor repairs that are required on the solar systems. They are the best engineers of Africa. Since 2006 to 2011, we have trained over 300 grandmothers from 28 different countries in Africa, and not one has failed me. Why? Because the best part of being illiterate is that you never forget. It's only the literate man and woman who forget. But once you train someone who doesn't know how to read and write, they never forget. So after 6 months, when the equipment reaches the village, they still remember. They still go and solar electrify each village. They all sit on one table, all talk to each other, but they don't understand a word because they're all speaking different languages. But the body language is great. They all love to speak to them. They all talk, yakety yak, chatter, 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 chatter. But they all love it. For the 6 months, there's so much solidarity between these grandmothers. We had the Dalai Lama came to us for one day, and he also created history by spending one night. For the first time in 20 years, the Dalai Lama has never spent a night in a village. And he said something very profound to me. He said, now that you have proved the Barefoot College works in practice, let's see if the researchers and the universities can make it work in theory. There is right now an approach which I don't believe in, called the Millennium Development Villages, developed in America by a gentleman called Jeff Sachs. And he is spending $2 million in one village, and there are 14 villages in Africa. I've got to skip now because I want to show you a film. But those villages, for the same $2 million, I could solar electrify 100 villages and train about 100 grandmothers. How we are doing it, I want to show you in a small film. This is a true story about ordinary heroes. This is about very simple rural women in Africa. From Ethiopia to Gambia, from Mauritania to Tanzania, from Sudan to South Africa, a quiet revolution is taking place. Illiterate and semi-literate rural women, most of them grandmothers, who have never left their villages in their lives, are proving the impossible is possible. By the hands-on approach, they are baffling high-powered engineers, universities, donors, development planners, and paper-qualified experts by demonstrating incredible sophisticated technology skills and exposing the fundamental inadequacies of the formal educational system. Without using the written or spoken word, they have come to India to be trained in 6 months to be solar engineers. Unlike the universities and other urban-based training centers that are all theory and no practice, it is not surprising these women know more about practical installation, fabrication, repair and maintenance than any paper-qualified certified solar engineer after 5 years. These women represent the profile of everyday rural Africa, from poor agricultural communities, housewives, daily wage laborers, midwives, small shopkeepers, slum dwellers, are all now recognized and respected leaders in their own communities. Even after 6 months in India, using only sign language while training, they know no theories of physics, electronics, or mathematics, no names of any spare parts, and have never heard of generating power from the sun. All the women, sitting together from 26 different countries, learn how to assemble charge controllers and inverters, how to establish a rural electronic workshop in small rooms donated by the community, install solar panels on the roofs, connect them to deep cycle batteries, and solar electrify each house in the village they come from. But what is extraordinary is that they have solar electrified each house in their own villages, all on their own. As a result of 12 women solar engineers trained in India, solar electrifying 1,760 houses in 35 villages, in 2011, the President of Sierra Leone has constructed the first Barefoot training center in Contaline in Africa, where now these Barefoot solar engineers will train 150 solar grandmothers from all over the country. When the 6 simple rural illiterate solar grandmothers returned to Burkina Faso, they were received as heroes. 3 cabinet ministers, the UNDP resident representative, and the entire national press were there at the airport. The Prime Minister received them. The Barefoot approach believes the management, control and ownership of the technology must lie in the hands of the poor communities. They must take all major decisions like how much they are prepared to pay as a monthly contribution and who among the poorest of the poor women should go for training as a Barefoot solar engineer. When the target is the poorest of the poor earning less than 50 cents a day, it is unreal and impractical to talk about business models. The partnership model is by far the most sustainable model. Poor communities in all these countries in Africa have agreed to pay what they now pay for kerosene, candle, wood, torch batteries and diesel. Depending on the economic status, they have agreed to pay between $5 to $10 per month per solar unit. This is a fundamental breakthrough because nothing should be free. The Barefoot approach does not believe in issuing certificates or diplomas after training. The certification should be done by the community themselves. That is why we believe men are untrainable. They are restless, ambitious, compulsively mobile, and they all want a certificate so that they can leave the village looking for a job in the city. None of the nearly 200 illiterate grandmothers trained as solar engineers from nearly 28 countries all over Africa have left their villages. So what are the universal lessons we have learned from training poor, illiterate, rural women as solar engineers in Africa? Lesson 1. Any illiterate woman, including a grandmother, from any part of Africa can be trained without using the written or spoken word in 6 months in India to be a confident and competent Barefoot solar engineer. Lesson 2. Sensitize the community first by involving them from the very beginning in taking major decisions on behalf of the whole village, and only then bringing the solar technology to the village, a genuine community-based bottom-up approach. Lesson 3. Keep urban-based paper-qualified engineers away because their arrogant top-down dependency approach, like in the case of the Millennium Village, is surely doomed to fail. They have neither the vision nor the courage nor the faith to select and train women as solar engineers. They also do not have the communication tools to speak as equals with poor communities. Lesson 4. No certificate should be issued. None of the grandmothers from any country in Africa have asked for them. Lesson 5. To reach the very poor, only a partnership model can work. The business model for the very poor in Africa will definitely fail. The cost of solar electrifying 170 villages by nearly 195 women solar engineers all over Africa is close to $3.9 million, less than the amount being wasted on 2 millennium villages. By 2010, the Indian government will have trained 6 women to solar electrify 400 houses in 5 villages from Mauritania, 8 women solar engineers solar electrifying 540 villages in 5 villages in Mali, 9 grandmothers to solar electrify 550 houses from 9 villages in Senegal, 6 women, 290 houses, 6 villages in the Gambia, 6 women, 250 houses, 4 villages to be solar electrified in Guinea-Bissau, 12 women, 1,760 houses, 35 villages from Sierra Leone, 6 women, 600 houses and 6 villages to be solar electrified in Burkina Faso, 4 women, 150 houses, 2 villages to be solar electrified in Niger, 6 women, 110 houses, 3 villages from Ghana, 2 women, 300 houses, 2 villages from Benin. 3 women, 100 houses, 2 villages from Cameroon. 3 women, 150 houses to be solar electrified in Namibia. 2 women, 100 houses, 2 villages to be solar electrified in Chad. 4 women, 200 houses and 2 villages in Sudan. 5 women, 250 houses, 5 villages in Djibouti. 46 women, 1,870 houses, 27 villages in Ethiopia. 4 women, 200 houses, 5 villages, solar electrified in Uganda. 8 women, 520 houses, 9 villages in Rwanda. 5 women, 300 houses, 3 villages to be solar electrified in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. 14 women, 1,700 houses, 8 villages solar electrified in Kenya. 12 women, 900 houses, 7 villages in the Meatu district of Tanzania. 6 women, 300 houses, 3 villages to be solar electrified in Zambia. 7 women, 316 houses, 4 villages in Malawi. 3 women, 100 houses, 2 villages in Mozambique. The 195 solar grandmothers have, as of today, solar electrified 12,700 houses in 170 villages. The first, technically and financially, self-sufficient solar electrified villages in the whole continent of Africa, indeed, the world. On a rare visit to the Barefoot College, when he also spent the night, His Holiness the Dalai Lama blessed the women solar engineers on the 13th of February 2011.
That's secret. So those illiterate villagers, even grandmother, is physically also a little bit old and illiterate. Yet, through training, is engineer, proud, self-confidence, and dignity. Wonderful.
By 2011-2012, by including Liberia, South Africa, Southern Sudan, Zimbabwe, Egypt, almost all the countries in the continent of Africa will be covered, saving 1.5 million liters of kerosene from polluting the environment and thousands of tons of wood from being burnt, depleting the already fragile forest. There is no question. The barefoot approach is here to stay. What Mahatma Gandhi said comes to mind. First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win.
Thank you.